So in this video, we're going to continue looking at our third phase of the game, which is base running. Okay, we're going to come at it from a point of view of the runner. And in the last video, we discovered the difference, or the subtle difference, between a force play and a tag out. So a force play is one you're going to find 9 times out of 10, even 99 times out of 100. Tag out plays rarely happen. You'll see maybe 5, maybe a handful of them in a season, maybe. So force play is the most common one because the fielding team only have to win the race with the ball to the bag that the runner is forced to run at. However, you might end up with a situation like this. So I have a batter up batting, and I have a runner here, but instead of the runner being on first base, for whatever reason, they've managed to get to second. So it could be a walk, it could be a good hit, they managed to get to second, and I've got a runner here. So notice now, if the batter hits the ball, they have to run to first. They are forced to run. So I have a force play at first base. The first baseman can come across, the ball can come across, and I'm hopefully going to win that race as the fielding side. And whoever wins the race is either out, if it's the fielding side, or they can run past it, remember, and they can become a runner. However, there's a subtle difference now for this runner here. If this batter is running to first, I'm only allowed 1 person per base, but there is no person at this base. This runner here isn't forced to run. They are what is known as an unforced runner. There is nobody behind them forcing them to run on. So this runner here cannot be forced out. This runner cannot be forced out by running to third. So what does that mean? It means as a fielding side, we have to know, and hopefully the shortstop or the second baseman, whoever's taking charge of the infield, and hopefully you as well, knowing the rules of the game, know that when you are told that this runner here is unforced, okay, what will tend to happen is if the ball comes in, then the fielding side will tend to ignore this runner and get the out at first base. And this runner might go up to third, okay? So whilst we are trying to win the race as a fielding side to first base, this runner might go, you know what, I'm going to go across to third. And the fielding side will get an out on the force play, so the batter will be out. We've run the race to first base, and the runner has moved up. However, very important, because they are now an unforced runner, there is not a force play at third base. If, for instance, the batter hit over here to third base, okay, then there is no race to third base. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. There is no race to third base because the runner isn't forced to run. If this third baseman was inexperienced and didn't understand this rule, they might run over to third base and stand with the ball on third base and go, ah, you're out. But the umpire would say, no, they're not out. They weren't forced to run, so were not subjected to a force play. And in the meantime, the batter runner has managed to make their way up to first base and now becomes a runner. So that's what we're trying to get an understanding of in this situation. Who is a forced runner and who is an unforced runner? So because this base runner here doesn't have anybody behind them forcing them to move on, they are now an unforced runner. There is no race to third base. There will always be a race to first base because the batter will always be going to first base. So let's assume then that that mistake has been made. Third base has come across and goes, oh, I've managed to get them out. I've forced them out. Ha ha ha. Okay. The coaches come across and go, no, you didn't watch our video on unforced runners, did you? Okay. Okay, they are unforced. Meanwhile, the batter has got to first base, turned into a runner, and the next batter is up. Okay. So now I have runners on first base and second base. So, what can you tell me about the runner at first base? Are they forced or are they unforced? In this case, and in every case, any runner on first base will always be forced. The reason for that is because the first base runner will always have a batter behind them. So as soon as that ball is hit, they are always going to be forced to go to second base. So there is always a force on at second if there is a runner at first. There is always a race on to first base because the batter runner is always going to first. If there is a runner at first, there is always a forced play at second because this runner is always forced to go to second. In this situation, what can you tell me about this runner here? Now, in this situation, this runner is now a forced runner. Because as soon as this ball is hit, this batter runner is forced to go to first. Can't have two people at this base, so this runner is forced to go to second. Can't have two people at this base, so this runner is forced to go to third. So because I now have a forced runner, there is a forced play at third. And we can, if we chose to, win the race to third. What tends to happen as a fielding side is you choose the easy option, which is to go to second, because it's the nearest base in the field. So know your differences between forced runners and unforced runners. So if I have an unforced runner, such as this one, okay, then there is no force play. There is no race to third base, okay, because there is nobody behind them forcing them to move on. If there is somebody behind them, then they will be forced to move on in the event of a hit. So there is a force play in this instance, and if we chose as the fielding side, we could then win the race to third. So here's a little bit of a quiz then. Here's a question. What can you tell me about these two runners here? If you need to, you can pause the video. But what can you tell me about this runner here? Well, they're on first base, so they will always be forced because there will always be a batter behind them. But this runner here on third base is unforced because there is nobody behind them forcing them to move on. The only way that this person would be forced to move on, if in the very unlikely event, if this runner came round and then kept going, then yes, they would be forced to go on. And I suppose at this point, I might as well introduce a rule that doesn't come up too often, but it's fairly good to put it at this point. It's come up. If this runner kept going, okay, one thing that is not permitted is a runner to overtake the other. So this runner here from first couldn't go all the way around and then overtake this person and come in. If that happens, then both the runners are out. Okay, so if this person comes round, they have to go, come on, come on, come on, go, go, go. Okay, and they have to cross the plate. And the final rule for this video, at least, is if you are a runner, I've seen this a few times with inexperienced players, if you go round the bases, you have to touch the bases with your foot, okay? Well, you can touch it with your head if you want, but it's easy with your foot. Okay, as you run around, you have to touch the bases. So if you were going from second to third and then to home, so the ball has been hit fairly deep and you've been told to go to third, you can't just skip the corner. You can't cut that corner. You have to touch third and then go to home. So what tends to happen is, rather than following the baselines, okay, you tend to sort of take a round, you tend to round that corner and then go home. Okay, keep the speed up. So the purpose of this video is to introduce and get you to understand the difference between a forced runner who is susceptible to a forced play, so we can win the race to the base with the ball as a fielding side, and an unforced runner who's not susceptible to a forced play, but may be susceptible to a tag play. So in this instance here, with this runner being unforced, with no person behind them, if they chose to run, let's assume we had an inexperienced runner So they were stood there and they believed that they were forced. As soon as the ball is hit, they might run, not knowing that they didn't have to run. So as a base runner, and you are unforced, and we'll deal with this later on in another video, okay, from the perspective of the base runner, if they didn't know that they could stay where they were and stay safe by keeping contact with the base, if they ran, this player might just come across and tag them. And hopefully, if you had an inexperienced runner from the fielder's perspective, you could then come over, tag them with the ball, and then hopefully win that race as well. And if you won that race after tagging them out, they were unforced, so had to be tagged out, and then you won the race to first base, so they will be forced out. Again, you would get 2 people out, and you would have a double play.